My wife cheated on me for months with a younger man. She lied to my face, told the world I was abusive, and even planned to destroy me in divorce court. But she forgot one thing. I wasn't as clueless as she thought. I gathered every secret, every lie, and in the end I exposed her in front of everyone who mattered. This is my story, and if you listen to it till the end, you might never look at love the same way again. The smell of sawdust clung to my hands that morning, even though I hadn't stepped into my workshop yet. It never really leaves you when you've been a carpenter as long as I have. Some men wake up with cologne lingering on their skin. Me, I wake up with oak and pine, a reminder of what I've built with these hands. 45 years old today, and all I had to show for it was a quiet house, an empty coffee cup, and a wife who didn't even look me in the eye when she left for work. Rachel used to make a big deal out of birthdays. She'd bake a cake with Sophie, even if it came out lopsided. She'd buy a new shirt and press it crisp just for me, saying, "My man deserves to look good on his day." I didn't need much, just the small gestures, the warmth of knowing she cared. But this morning she barely muttered, "Happy birthday, Dan," as she slipped on her heels and grabbed her purse. No hug, no kiss, not even her usual half smile. Just cold efficiency, like she was running late to something far more important than me. "Dinner tonight?" I asked, pretending not to notice the distance. Her hand froze on the doorknob for a fraction of a second. Then she said, "Oh, I'll try. We've got a campaign meeting at work, and Ethan needs me to stay late." Ethan. That name rolled off her tongue too casually. I'd heard it plenty these past few months. Always Ethan needs this, or Ethan asked for that. A younger guy at her firm, supposedly brilliant with clients, charming in a way that made everyone laugh. Rachel said he reminded her of when she first started her career, ambitious and hungry. Maybe she thought I should be flattered she was mentoring him. But there was something in the way she said his name, soft, distracted, almost fond, that twisted inside me. I smiled anyway because that's what I'd learned to do. "We can celebrate tomorrow then." Sophie was looking forward to cake. Rachel adjusted her blazer, smoothing non-existent wrinkles. "We'll see. Don't make a fuss about it. You know how busy things are." And just like that, the front door shut, her perfume lingering in the hallway long after she was gone. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was suffocating. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the mug she'd left half full of coffee. Her lipstick smudged the rim, bright red against the porcelain. I touched the mark with my thumb, remembering when that lipstick used to stain my shirt collars, when her kisses were unplanned, urgent, filled with a kind of love that made me believe we'd last forever. Now it was just another mark of absence. Sophie padded into the kitchen a few minutes later, hair messy, hoodie half-zipped. 16 years old and already carrying the weight of her mother's moods on her shoulders. She dropped her backpack with a thud and gave me a sleepy grin. "Happy birthday, Dad." She leaned down to kiss my cheek. At least someone remembered how to make me feel seen. "Thanks, kiddo," I said, forcing cheer into my voice. "Want eggs?" She wrinkled her nose. "Yours, yeah. Mom's?" "Not so much," I laughed, though it came out hollow. Rachel hadn't cooked breakfast in months, maybe longer. Too busy, too tired, too distracted. Always something. Sophie poured herself cereal and glanced at the empty chair across from me. "She already leave?" "Yeah. Big day at the office." Her eyes narrowed the way teenagers do when they're smarter than you give them credit for. But she didn't press. She just ate in silence, phone in hand, tapping away at something that made her smile faintly. When she left for school, the house was mine again. The silence returned, heavier this time. I tried to keep myself busy in the workshop, sanding down a set of oak chairs for a client. The rhythmic scrape of the paper usually calms me, centers me. But today my hands trembled, and I kept running over the same spot until the wood grew raw. My thoughts weren't on the chairs, they were on Rachel. On Ethan. I told myself I was being paranoid. She was ambitious, always had been. Of course she'd spend extra hours with a rising star in her firm. It was her job, and yet, the way she'd been pulling away from me, like I was an obligation rather than a partner. The way she shielded her phone screen when I walked into a room. The way she laughed, God, that laugh. I hadn't heard her laugh with me in months, but I'd heard it spill from her in the kitchen once when she thought I was out in the shop. She'd been on the phone, voice soft, playful. When I asked who it was, she said Lydia, her friend. But I've known Lydia for years, and Rachel never spoke to her like that. I set the sandpaper down and rubbed my temples. I hated this. Hated the way suspicion wormed through me, turning every gesture into evidence, every word into a clue. I'd built my life on trust, on fixing things, making them whole again. But how do you fix a marriage when the cracks aren't in the wood but in the heart? At noon I drove into town for supplies. Mark Thompson, my neighbor and oldest friend, spotted me near the hardware store. Dan the man, he called, striding over. Big guy, broad shoulders, the kind of presence that filled a room. He used to be a cop before he retired early, and he never really lost that watchful edge. Heard it's your birthday. You doing anything special? I forced a smile. Dinner, maybe, if Rachel's not too busy. Mark raised an eyebrow. He'd always been blunt. She's been real busy lately, hasn't she? My grip tightened on the bag of nails I was carrying. Work, you know how it is. He didn't look convinced. Well, if you ever need company, beers are on me. Better to drink with a friend than sit alone. I nodded, grateful but uneasy. Mark saw more than I wanted him to. He always had. That night, Sophie baked a cake from a box mix, lopsided but sweet. She lit the candles and sang softly, her voice the only warmth in the kitchen. Rachel didn't come home. She texted at 9:15. Sorry, working late. Happy birthday, we'll celebrate tomorrow. I stared at that message until the words blurred. Working late, always working late. Sophie tried to hide her disappointment, but I saw it in the way she pushed her cake around her plate without eating. It's okay, I told her. We'll do it this weekend, the three of us. But even as I said it, I didn't believe it. Later, when the house was quiet, I found myself standing in the hallway outside our bedroom. Rachel's perfume still hung faintly in the air, but her presence didn't. I opened the dresser drawer where she kept her jewelry. A new bracelet lay there, gold with a delicate chain. I hadn't bought it. Sophie hadn't bought it. I picked it up, turned it over in my hand. The clasp was too shiny, too new. My chest tightened. I put it back carefully, as if touching it too long might burn me. Then I sat on the edge of the bed we'd shared for nearly 2 decades, and realized something I'd been trying to avoid for weeks. Rachel wasn't just busy. She wasn't just distracted. She was somewhere else entirely, with someone else entirely. And for the first time, I admitted it to myself. I was losing my wife. But what she didn't know, what she couldn't see, was that I wasn't the clueless, blind husband she thought I was, not anymore. The next morning, sunlight crept through the blinds, but it didn't bring warmth with it. It only highlighted the empty space beside me in bed. Rachel had slipped in sometime after midnight, her side of the sheets barely disturbed. She'd turned away from me the moment she lay down, her back a wall I couldn't climb. I'd stayed awake for hours listening to her quiet, steady breaths, wondering if she'd smelled of perfume that wasn't hers. Wondering if she'd carried someone else's laughter home in her hair. When I finally rose, the kitchen was spotless. No trace of breakfast. Rachel was already gone. Just a sticky note on the counter. Early meeting. Don't wait up for dinner either. I crumpled it in my fist. Early meeting. Don't wait up. The words had become a kind of refrain in our house. A song I didn't know the lyrics to but couldn't escape. Sophie came downstairs minutes later, her headphones draped around her neck. She glanced at the note in my hand. Let me guess, she said dryly. Work? Yeah, I muttered. Big campaign. She rolled her eyes, too old to be fooled. She's been on that big campaign for months now. Feels like she lives there. I wanted to protect her, to shield her from the storm building under our roof. But Sophie was sharp. She noticed things. She'd grown up watching her mother get ready in the mirror, reapply lipstick 3 times before heading out. She knew the difference between stress lines and secrets. That afternoon, I drove into town to deliver a finished dining table to Mrs. Kent, one of my oldest clients. She was a widow, 70 years old, with a sharp tongue softened only by her love for small-town gossip. She'd practically raised half the neighborhood's kids, and she had a way of knowing everything that passed through our streets. Well, if it isn't Mr. Carter, she said as I carried the table into her sunroom, still making things that'll outlive us all. Trying my best, I replied, setting the table down carefully. She studied me with those hawk-like eyes. Birthday yesterday, wasn't it? Did Rachel spoil you? I hesitated just a second too long, Mrs. Kent noticed. She always did. She was busy, I said. Busy, she repeated, her voice dripping with skepticism. Funny how that word covers a multitude of sins. You know, I saw her the other evening down by the lakeside bistro. Thought she might be treating you, but you weren't with her. My hand stilled on the edge of the table. When was this? Tuesday night, maybe? Hard to keep track. She was with that young man from her office. What's his name? Ethan, that's it. Mrs. Kent clicked her tongue. They looked awfully cozy. I thought maybe it was a work thing, but she was laughing like a schoolgirl. Haven't seen her laugh like that in years. I forced a smile, though my stomach clenched. Probably just business. Her eyes narrowed. Maybe so, but a woman doesn't tilt her head like that unless she's flirting. I may be old, but I'm not blind. I left her house with more than just an empty truck bed. Her words followed me, heavy and sharp. Not blind. No, I wasn't blind either. Not anymore. That evening, Sophie sat at the kitchen table doing homework. Her phone buzzed and she frowned. Dad, she said cautiously, do you trust Mom? The question caught me off guard. Of course I do, I said automatically. But even to my own ears it sounded forced. She hesitated, then slid her phone toward me. I didn't mean to snoop, but I was walking past her office yesterday. She was on the phone and she didn't know I could hear. On the screen was a recording Sophie had made. Rachel's voice filled the kitchen, light and playful. You make me feel alive, Ethan. I can't remember the last time Dan made me laugh. He's just comfortable, you know? Safe. But I need more than safe. The words cut deeper than any blade. Sophie's eyes searched mine. Dad, I don't think she's just working late. I swallowed hard, fighting the urge to smash the phone against the wall. Instead, I set it down gently. Thank you for showing me, sweetheart. But this is between me and your mom. You don't need to carry this weight. Her voice cracked. I don't want to see you hurt. I pulled her into a hug, holding her tighter than I had in years. I'll be okay, I promise. But inside, I knew promises were fragile things. The next few days passed in a blur of half-truths and shadows. Rachel came home later and later, sometimes not at all. She always had an excuse, deadlines, clients, Lydia needing her. But the lies were paper-thin and I was done pretending I couldn't see through them. So I started watching. Not in an obsessive, frantic way. In a quiet, patient way. The kind of patience you learn from years of smoothing wood grain, waiting for the varnish to set. On Thursday, I told Rachel I had a late delivery. Instead, I parked my truck across from her office. At 6:45, I saw her emerge, not alone, but with Ethan. She touched his arm as they laughed. Their bodies too close for colleagues. He opened the passenger door of his sleek black car for her, and she slid in with the ease of routine. My chest tightened, proof. I followed at a distance, careful, steady. They drove to a restaurant out of town, one with soft lighting and private booths. From my truck, I snapped a few photos, grainy but clear enough. Rachel leaning toward him, her hand brushing his. His smile, smug and sure of himself. It was one thing to suspect. Another to see it. To see the woman I'd built a life with, the mother of my daughter, sharing secret laughter with another man. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles ached. But I didn't storm in. Didn't shout. Didn't cause a scene. That's what Rachel would expect. That's what she could twist into her narrative. The unstable, jealous husband. No, I would not give her that. Instead, I went home. And for the first time, I opened the drawer in my desk where we kept our bank statements, our bills, our joint accounts. I studied every line, every transaction. And I saw it. Hotel charges, dinners, small purchases that didn't match her story. All there in black and white. The cracks in the wood had become splinters. Friday night, she came home late again. Sophie was asleep upstairs. I sat at the kitchen table, a folder of bank statements and photos in front of me. Rachel walked in, tossing her heels carelessly by the door. You're still up? I looked at her, really looked. The faint glow on her skin, the perfume too strong, the smile that didn't reach her eyes. Long night? I asked. She blinked, surprised at my tone. Work. You know how it is. I slid the folder across the table. She didn't open it, just stared at it. A flicker of something, fear maybe, passed through her eyes. What's this? She asked, her voice too steady. Proof, I said quietly. Of everything. Her mask faltered just for a moment before she forced a laugh. Dan, you're being ridiculous. You're paranoid. That's what Lydia said. You twist everything into some kind of accusation. I leaned back, my voice calm. I don't need to twist anything. The facts speak for themselves. She bristled. You don't understand. Ethan, he makes me feel... Don't, I interrupted, my voice sharp now. Don't you dare try to justify this to me. 18 years, Rachel. I gave you everything. And this is what I get. Her chin lifted, defiant. Maybe I need more than safe. Maybe I need more than you. The words echoed in the kitchen like a gunshot. I stood slowly, pushing back my chair. My hands shook, but not from rage. From clarity. This isn't over, I told her. Not by a long shot. You think you've been clever, but you don't know me as well as you think you do. Her eyes widened, but I didn't give her the satisfaction of seeing me break. I walked upstairs, kissed Sophie's forehead as she slept, and lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Rachel thought she'd played her hand, thought I was the fool in this story, but she had no idea what I was capable of when pushed. The weekend should have felt normal. Sophie had soccer practice, the house needed cleaning, bills were stacked neatly on the counter. But nothing was normal anymore. Rachel floated through the rooms like a stranger, her smile brittle, her voice just sweet enough to fool anyone who didn't know better. But I knew. I had the folder of proof hidden in my desk. Photos, bank records, Sophie's recording. Every piece of evidence weighed on me like stones in my pocket. Yet I carried them quietly, never letting them drag me down in front of her. She might think I was blind, but blindness had turned into sight. A kind of cold, dangerous sight. On Saturday afternoon, Mark Thompson came by. My neighbor, my friend, the man who'd been a cop long enough to read lies off a person's face like headlines in a paper. He leaned on the fence while I raked leaves. You look like hell, he said bluntly. Appreciate the compliment, I replied. He studied me, chewing on the inside of his cheek. It's Rachel, isn't it? I didn't answer. That was enough for him. Listen, Mark said, lowering his voice. I've seen her around. Once at the lakeside, once downtown. Not with you. With that slick-haired kid she works with. You need to protect yourself, Dan. If she's stepping out, she's not just playing with your marriage. She's playing with your future. I know, I said quietly. Mark narrowed his eyes. Then don't sit on it. Don't let her write the story before you do. His words stayed with me long after he walked back to his yard. Don't let her write the story before you do. That night, Rachel dressed for another meeting. A fitted dress, too much perfume, heels that clicked across the floor like a countdown. Sophie was sprawled on the couch, pretending to scroll through her phone, but watching every move her mother made. Don't wait up, Rachel said, grabbing her purse. I forced a calm smile. Wouldn't dream of it. Her eyes flickered, as if she wasn't sure whether I was mocking her or not. Then she left. The door clicked shut. Sophie looked up. She's lying again, isn't she? I sat down beside her, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Sometimes people lose themselves, Soph. They make choices that hurt the people they love. But none of this is your fault, you hear me? Tears welled in her eyes. I don't care about her choices. I just don't want to lose you. You won't, I promised, pulling her close. No matter what happens between your mother and me, you'll always have me. I meant every word. Around 10, I couldn't resist. I drove into town, careful, patient. Her car wasn't at the office. Not at Lydia's either. I checked the Riverside Hotel next. There it was, parked neatly under the neon glow. I sat in my truck, gripping the wheel, my heart pounding like a hammer. I didn't go inside. Didn't need to. The sight of her car parked there, the late hour, the evidence already piled in my folder. It was enough. But part of me wanted more. So I waited. Hours passed. Around midnight they came out. Rachel, her lipstick smudged, her hair slightly undone. Ethan beside her, his hand pressed low against her back. She was laughing, carefree, like a girl half her age. And then I saw it. Rachel leaning in to kiss him, not caring about the parking lot, not caring about the world. The kind of kiss she hadn't given me in years. I snapped a photo from the shadows. Proof that could shatter every lie she might spin. But as I watched, I realized something chilling. Rachel wasn't just enjoying herself. She was glowing with a kind of reckless freedom, the kind that doesn't end quietly, the kind that burns everything in its path. The next morning, Rachel was back before Sophie woke up. She tried to play her role, made pancakes, smiled like nothing was wrong. But when she looked at me across the kitchen table, her eyes hardened. "Dan," she began, her voice rehearsed. "I've been thinking. Maybe it's time we took a break. You know, space."
It's been years, and I feel like we've just grown apart. I sipped my coffee slowly.
"Is that what you call it?" Her jaw tightened. "Don't start." "Start what?" I asked, my voice calm. "Pointing out that you spend your nights at hotels with Ethan?" Her eyes widened, but only for a second. Then she laughed sharp and bitter. "You're unbelievable. Snooping around, following me. You're obsessed, Dan, controlling. This is exactly what I mean. I can't breathe in this marriage." And there it was, the twist. She wasn't just cheating, she was preparing the narrative. The unfaithful wife painted herself as the victim, and me as the villain. "You're good," I said softly. "I'll give you that. Spinning lies while your lipstick is still smeared from another man." Her face flushed, not from shame, but from fury. "If you try to make me the bad guy, no one will believe you. Everyone knows you're quiet, brooding, possessive. I've told Lydia how trapped I feel. You'll look like the jealous husband who drove me away." I studied her, my chest strangely calm. She thought she'd cornered me, thought her story was already written. But she underestimated me. Later that day, I went to Mark's house. I showed him the photos, the recordings, the bank statements. His eyes narrowed as he flipped through them. "You've got her, Dan. Solid, but you need to be smart. Don't confront her again without a plan. If she's trying to paint you as controlling, she'll twist anything you say." "I know," I said. "You want me to help?" he asked. I nodded. "I'll need witnesses, people who see the truth, not just her version of it." Mark leaned back. "Then let her keep thinking she's winning. Let her get comfortable. The higher she climbs, the harder the fall." Days blurred into weeks. Rachel's lies grew bolder. She told Sophie she was staying late at work, though Sophie no longer believed a word. She told friends I was distant, paranoid, hard to live with. She even hinted to Lydia that I'd been checking her phone, which wasn't true. She was laying the groundwork for a divorce where she came out the saint and I the shadow. But while she built her story, I built mine. Quietly, carefully, photos, receipts, recordings. Every puzzle piece slipped into place. And then, one evening, I overheard a phone call that confirmed everything. Rachel was in the backyard, pacing. I stood by the open window upstairs, listening. "Don't worry, Ethan. He won't see it coming. Once I file, everyone will side with me. Dan's predictable. He'll either explode or retreat. Either way, I'll have the sympathy. And then, it's just us." Her laugh carried through the night. I closed the window slowly, my reflection staring back at me in the glass. She thought she'd broken me down into something predictable, something weak. But what she didn't realize was that she had awakened something else entirely. The next morning, I walked into the workshop and ran my hands over the oak boards stacked neatly on the bench. I thought about how wood changes when pressure is applied. Too much force and it splinters, but steady, patient pressure, that shapes it, turns it into something strong, something lasting. Rachel thought she had me cornered. She thought she was the craftsman, and I was the raw material. But she was wrong. I was the one holding the tools, and I was ready to shape the ending of this story in a way she'd never see coming. The days leading up to Rachel's downfall felt almost calm. Too calm, like the eerie silence before a storm. She moved through the house as if everything was under control, her lies polished, her mask unshakable. She thought she held the reins. She thought I was just biding time until she tossed me aside. But the truth was, I was waiting. Waiting for the moment when every piece I'd collected would fit together, when her lies would collapse under the weight of her own arrogance. Sophie noticed the tension, of course. She wasn't a child anymore. She carried her hurt quietly, pretending homework kept her busy, but I caught her glances. Sometimes, when Rachel wasn't looking, she'd squeeze my hand like she was telling me without words, "Don't let her win." I didn't plan to. It was on a Thursday evening that Rachel struck first. She came home early, her face set, her eyes sharp with false resolve. Sophie was upstairs, music playing faintly in her room. Rachel tossed her purse on the counter and crossed her arms. Dan, she said, her voice steady. I've spoken to a lawyer. The words hung in the air like smoke. I'm filing for divorce. I've already told Lydia and some of my colleagues. I've explained how difficult things have been, how you've been controlling, suspicious, jealous. She watched me closely, waiting for me to explode, to prove her story true. But I didn't. I just leaned back in my chair, folded my arms, and studied her. That's a bold move, I said calmly. She blinked, thrown off by my composure. It's not bold, Dan, it's necessary. I can't live like this anymore. I deserve happiness. With Ethan? I asked. Her lips curved into the faintest smirk. Maybe, maybe not. But at least he sees me. At least he makes me feel alive. I let the silence stretch until it was unbearable. Then, slowly, I pulled out my phone, tapped a button, and Rachel's own voice filled the kitchen. Don't worry, Ethan. He won't see it coming. Once I file, everyone will side with me. Dan's predictable. He'll either explode or retreat. Either way, I'll have the sympathy. And then, it's just us. Rachel's face drained of color. I stopped the recording, my eyes locked on hers. Predictable, huh? For the first time, she faltered. You've been spying on me? I've been listening, I corrected. There's a difference. And you made it very easy. The next move was mine. I knew Rachel would try to spin this in private, twist it into something else. So I needed to bring her lies into the light where shadows couldn't protect her. Mark helped me arrange it. A small gathering at the community hall, neighbors, friends, a few of Rachel's colleagues. It was disguised as a casual get-together, a fundraiser for the soccer team. Rachel loved the spotlight. She couldn't resist showing up, especially with Ethan at her side. That evening, Sophie sat beside me, nervous but resolute. Mark stood near the back, his arms crossed, his presence steady. The room buzzed with chatter until Rachel walked in, her hand curled possessively around Ethan's arm. She wore confidence like a gown, flashing smiles, greeting people as if she owned the place. And then she saw me, calm, waiting. Her smile faltered just slightly. When the moment was right, I stood. My voice carried easily through the room. Thank you all for coming tonight. I know most of you are here for the team, but I want to share something personal. Something important. Rachel stiffened, her eyes narrowing. I glanced around the room, meeting faces I'd known for years. People who respected me, who trusted me. People Rachel had been feeding her version of the story to. For 18 years, I believed I had a faithful wife. I began. I believed in our family, in the sacrifices we both made. But while I was building a home, Rachel was building lies. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Rachel shot to her feet. Dan, stop this! Don't humiliate yourself. But I didn't stop. I pulled the folder from my bag, laying out the photos on the table. Rachel and Ethan at the restaurant. At the hotel. In the parking lot, gasps filled the air. Rachel's face burned crimson. These are lies. Taken out of context. I played the recording next. Her voice clear as crystal, admitting everything. Planning everything. Silence followed, thick and heavy. Rachel stammered, He's twisting this. He's paranoid. But no one was listening. Eyes turned to her, wide with disappointment, with disbelief. Ethan shifted uncomfortably, his confidence crumbling. He hadn't signed up for this kind of exposure. He stepped back from her, hands raised as if to distance himself. Rachel, I said quietly, you wanted everyone's sympathy. You wanted me to look like the villain. But the truth has a way of cutting through lies. And tonight, everyone sees who you really are. Rachel's facade cracked completely. Tears welled, not of guilt, but of fury, humiliation. She turned to Ethan, desperate. Say something. Tell them. But Ethan shook his head. You told me this would be clean, that he was weak. You didn't say he had proof. He looked at me, almost apologetic, then walked out, leaving her alone. The room buzzed with whispers. Friends turned away, neighbors avoided her eyes. Lydia shifted uncomfortably in the corner, her loyalty suddenly inconvenient. Rachel stood trembling, her perfect image in ruins. I didn't gloat. I didn't shout. I simply gathered my folder, took Sophie's hand and said, "We're done here." And I walked out. Later that night at home, Rachel sat in the darkened living room. Her mascara streaked, her hair tangled, Her body slumped. For once, she looked small. Dan, she whispered as I passed. Please, we can fix this. For Sophie. For us. I stopped studying her. You didn't think about Sophie when you were sneaking around. You didn't think about me when you called me predictable, when you laughed in Ethan's arms. You broke this, Rachel. Not me. Her tears fell harder. I don't want to lose everything. I shook my head slowly. You already did. And I walked upstairs where Sophie was waiting. Weeks passed. The divorce papers came, but the balance of power had shifted. With the evidence I'd gathered, Rachel's claims of me being controlling dissolved. She had no ground to stand on. Her reputation in the community never recovered. Ethan was long gone, and Lydia's friendship was suddenly quiet. But Sophie, she stayed by my side. She saw the truth, lived through it, and in the end, she chose me. There were nights I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering how 18 years could dissolve into ashes, wondering if I could have done something different. But every time I remembered Rachel's laughter with Ethan, her cruel words about me being safe, I knew the truth. This wasn't my failure. This was hers. Revenge didn't come with shouting or violence. It came with calm, with patience, with truth exposed at the right moment. Rachel wanted to destroy me, but in the end, she destroyed herself. And I walked away not broken, not bitter, just free. The house is quieter now. Sometimes too quiet. But Sophie's laughter fills the silence, and my workshop hums with life. I've learned something through all of this. Betrayal doesn't define you. How you respond does. Rachel thought I was predictable. She thought she could script my story. But the only predictable thing about me was that I would never let her win.